We're going to do some cast superlatives.
Yes.
Superlative and tell me who best suits this description.
Okay, I like this.
Most likely to break out into song when not filming.
Probably me. No, Corey.
When he breaks out into song, what does he sing?
Yes. Oh, all of them. He'd be like, yeah. He'd be doing the 96,000, or he'll do the check 1, 2, 3, check 1, 2, 3. This is Benny on the dispatch. Yo.
Yes. Who is the most likely to surprise you while you're filming a scene?
Anthony, for sure. They've all done it, but Anthony is the one that will show up on set, like, unannounced and just be like, yo, what's good? What we doing for lunch?
Who is the most changed cast member? Like, who changed the most from day one of filming to rec?
Okay. I mean, we all are changed. We all were transformed by this film. I'd say Gregory, maybe. From the film to now, he's grown up. He's a few feet taller.
Who is the most likely to survive a zombie apocalypse?
Corey. Yes, he probably has got the skills and the wig for it too. That fabulous wig that he would wear on the show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a brand new episode of Collider Ladies Night. Today, we are highlighting In the Heights, more specifically, star Leslie Grace. Hello, how are you doing? And congratulations, because how is this your first feature?
You are so kind. I am incredibly excited that this is my first feature. I couldn't be more blessed to be a part of this film.
We have this dice tower back here. So I come up with 8 questions, but I only roll the die 3 times. So I'm only letting myself ask you those 3 questions, at least to start. It's a 4. We're calling this one Comfort Watch. What is the movie that you can watch over and over? Something that'll brighten your day no matter what.
Lately, it's been Soul. I've watched Soul so many times since it's come out. And I know it's new, but it's my new favorite.
Roll number 2. It's a 7. Oh, this is a fun one. 4-legged friends. Do you have any pets?
I do have pets. I wish I had a 4-legged furry friend. But I don't, not yet. That's my dream. I'm a big dog lady, but I have 2 4-legged friends. They're turtles and their names are Tick and Talk. And I'm looking at them right now and they're Tick.
It is a 1. We're calling this one Last Step. Okay. What's the very last thing you like to do before you hit the set to film a scene?
Ooh, I pray. Actually, I pray. I just do a really quick prayer, like, Lord, use me in whatever way you can to exude what is necessary for the scene. I do the same thing when I sing, and I just try to absorb whatever is necessary for the moment to do what I'm there to do.
Do you remember when the itch to act first kind of crept in? Did it come from watching a favorite movie, a personal experience, you name it?
I really loved the idea of acting when I was a kid. Like I was a Disney kid. I loved watching Disney movies and Disney shows and Lizzie McGuire and Even Stevens and all those shows, right? Sister, all those shows. And I have a sister that would say, you're a Disney child, you're my Disney child, or, because I would just be glued and I wanted to see myself, someone that looked like me on screen. And I knew from a very young age that I enjoyed performing. It developed first through music and through dance. And then I really enjoyed capturing a feeling and being able to exude it and make people feel something from that. So I remember going to this little acting class, this improv class actually at this place called Tannen's Talent in New York. And I think it was in Yonkers that my mom put me in with my older sister, Anexi, and my sister killed it. She was amazing at improv. She was older. She's 12 years older than me. And I was maybe 7 or 8 at the time. And I sucked at improv. I would freeze up. I was any test environment, I would just forget everything that was going on and not know what to say. And I'm still kind of like that. But that made me a little bit intimidated about, like acting on its own until I got to high school. And then I started doing American musical theater in high school. And that's when I was really like, oh, like you can like perform and sing and act and dance, all in one space. And that's when I really like opened myself up to the possibility of me pursuing acting.
You brought up your sister, and I was watching another interview where you mentioned your cousin and having done your first read with your cousin. So is it safe to say that your family is kind of very involved in your craft and what you do and maybe helps in a number of respects?
Absolutely. My cousin that I was talking about, he wasn't really an actor, but he would do his best to, like, when I didn't have readers, he'd be like, all right, he's from Philly, he's from Pennsylvania. He'd be like, what we gonna read today? What you need me to read today? And he'd do his best.
So he helped you read for other auditions, not just in the Heights. So I'm assuming that first feature here, you auditioned for other things and maybe it didn't quite pan out. So what is the key then to putting yourself out there, it not panning out, but you staying focused and ultimately getting this one?
Yeah, I knew that it would take time, like I also grew up in a family that worked for everything, and worked really hard. So I knew the value of persisting at something. And like, if you really, really want something, you're not going to quit. You're going to see it through because that's what you're meant to do. I've always had like the perspective of like, if you don't get something, it's not for you. And you're learning something from the experience of preparing for this thing that you didn't get or that didn't pan out. And that was my experience. Like a lot of people don't know, I even though this is my first thing on screen, I had been auditioning for years. And I know that there are a lot of people that, audition for all their life and don't get the blessing of doing a project like this. So I'm forever grateful. But there is always a process behind where you get your experience from. And for me, it was all of those auditions. And it was even the first audition that I had in front of Jon 2 years prior to stepping into the room again and reading for him, way more mature and having read for a lot of other things and auditioned and like successfully like gotten callbacks and stuff where I felt like, okay, I'm on to something by that point. So that process definitely wasn't, it wasn't always smooth sailing and it wasn't always like validated, but I just, had to teach myself and, have people to bounce off of to see my old self tapes and say, okay, I can fix this here. I can do this better. I can do this better. What can I adjust until the right opportunity came along, the right role came along.
Your family sounds incredible, and now I'm obsessed with them. One more question about the audition process, because I know sometimes when you audition for something, you might not necessarily know for sure which part they're looking at you for. And even if you audition for one part with certainty, you might wind up with another. So I was just curious, was there any uncertainty in that department on this film, or did you always know it would be Nina?
So I definitely felt most like identified with Nina and was going for Nina, and I had read originally for Nina. And then I remember that second time, a year and a half later, that second time around, once I read in front of Jon again and Lin, Kiara, they had asked that I learn the part of Vanessa, and the same for Mel. That last audition in front of Lin, we read and chemistry read both parts on that day, and we switched around a bunch of times for a little bit, for a couple hours. And so I was just like, I was ready. I just wanted to be a part of this thing. But it turned out that all of us really ended up playing the people that we really knew and that we really truly like didn't really have to act, like I really identify myself with Nina and the struggles of her being a first generation, Latina Americana that's like trying to push forward, but also feels like fragmented in her identity a little bit. And I know that Mel feels really, really reflected in the role of Vanessa, feeling like, I got to make it out to get to my dream and, falling back in love with her hometown and, finding the beauty of like everything that she is because of where she came from.
I really want to know about your experience working with Jon as an actor's director, because the note giving process can be a challenge just in terms of, how you receive constructive criticism, but also just understanding how to apply it and change what you're doing when you've been doing something a very specific way. So What was it like working with him on that type of stuff?
Oh, incredible. I mean, there wasn't even a notion or a feeling of like, oh, I didn't like that note or like any of those type of things. Like even you mentioning it now is just like I can't even think of like anything like that because John was just such a generous director and he was very much like all those roles like director and choreographer and actor and like all these positions really almost faded because we all just felt like we were this community that was like telling the story and we were making this thing together. And so even Lin, like he gave us all the liberty to figure it out. Him and Kiara painted it so perfectly in the way that they wrote it. And then we, John, Lin, and Kiara rewrote and crafted it for a film adaptation, but we were also in the room with them a lot of times in those director writing meetings and actor meetings where they would talk through the scenes with us to make sure, like, does this feel right? Like, and it was collaborative in that sense. Like there was in every space there was a conversation about, okay, does this feel like this has a pulse, like it's a living thing, or does this feel like you wouldn't say this, Nina wouldn't say this. So we discovered it together, and I think that's what's so beautiful. And I've come to understand from the rest of my castmates that it doesn't always happen that way. And I know it doesn't always happen that way because in music, it doesn't always happen that way. And it's a much smaller circumstance when you're shooting with a music director or music video director or something like that. But even then you would think it's not always as collaborative. So I'm very grateful to John that he, more than anything is like a coach and like is also an enabler of like you finding your power as an actor or an actress.
With how you just explained the process in mind, is there an example of, anything from a whole scene to a little line of dialogue that needed that kind of collaboration or massaging that we can now see that highlights you all coming together and changing something for the better?
Definitely. I'd say for me, there were multiple moments where John would step in and say something absolutely pivotal and essential to what happened in the scene. I'll tell you two though. In the dinner scene, which was a very hard scene for all of us, but for me, where Nina's going back and forth with her dad, she has to express what she's gone through at Stanford and that she was searched. And, it's a very vulnerable moment for her because she's basically been hiding the reason why she doesn't want to go back. And this is her moment to like share like, hey, this is what's really freaking going on when I go to Stanford. This is how I get treated. This is what people that look like us get treated like, even though you guys think I'm just a genius and fit right in. And it takes time sometimes to get to the vulnerable place where, where you're not pushing the emotion, but you're also, allowing everybody else to feel it and giving it the importance that something like that feels like. And so John, I remember John coming in to the very small space that we were all burning up in that apartment. He came in to the dinner table and he was like, he whispered something in my ear. I won't say particularly what it was, but he just gave me an as if, like, say this as if it was this. And it changed my entire approach to the scene, and to the point where I could barely verbalize the lines, but it was exactly what Nina needed to feel and needed to express in that dinner scene. And in turn, like the rest of my castmates that I was looking at, Stephanie, Daphne, Melissa, they were all like, especially Stephanie, were so generous in their acting. I'm sure he like gave them a little note, like just give her everything. And that's very reflective of how we held each other up. The second one is on the last day of us shooting. It was the last bit of Breathe, and they all planned it out like for me to end on the fire escape singing just me and the GWB asking Gene, what do you be? Another moment where Anita is like, just barely can say what she's singing. It was everybody below, you know, all of our cast and crew, including Anthony, Melissa, and Corey, who were supposed to be, they were done shooting already. They were supposed to be gone. I thought that they already left, and they surprised me and showed up on set. And we had this beautiful moment of like, wow, we completed this movie. But as I was saying that, I was looking out at them, all the people that we made this movie with. And that was all John and Joe Reedy, our AD, who like planned out perfectly the sequence of how these scenes would be completed.
I could talk to you for forever. This
Yes,
was
so great.
Delightful. Thank you so
Thank
much for your time today. And to let all of our viewers know, you can catch In the Heights in theaters and on HBO Max on June 11th. It's incredible. Leslie, you're incredible in it. Congratulations again. And thanks for joining us for Ladies Night.
Thank you so much, Barry. This was amazing.